a large number of the people who are building in and around us aren't like us. And not in the ways that don't matter, because if I spend enough time in the sun, I'm probably browner than half the people who are coming into Australia right now, but in the ways that do matter. Has Lydia torpedoed her career and her freedom? Can we celebrate now that Israel and Hamas have agreed to hostage negotiations and $100 million to die? This is the Mark Perrotta Show. Before we get into the news and topics of the day and what's happened this week, I want to take a moment to just speak to the person who inspired me to take this step and really put myself out there into public life and not just debating amongst friends. It feels appropriate that on what would have been his 32nd birthday, I start this move into a public forum in honor of Charlie Kirk. Now, today, Charlie Kirk was in America in the Rose Garden by Donald Trump awarded the Medal of Freedom posthumously. And it feels appropriate to me that I record this session after putting things together for the last 3 to 4 weeks and getting agreement from people in my life to actually put this forward and say, let's take this next step. Now, in the weeks and now a month since Charlie Kirk died, I've really had time to reflect and think about what I wanted to talk about, how I wanted to structure this, and I still have very, very little idea. So it's probably going to be a free form with a little bit of structure, mostly around news, based around Australian politics mostly, but obviously we're a tiny country compared to the rest of the globe. So we will be talking America, we will be talking Israel, Hamas, global conflicts, things that are happening around the world. It's not just going to be, what's happening in our island of, I think now 28 million people, if not 29, and discussing how Australia can take steps to improve itself for the future, not just for the people of today. Circling back to Charlie, it feels like the tide has shifted. There's something else in the air now. Erica Kirk said in her statement following Charlie's death that her cry or her tears will be like a battle cry that will be heard around the world. I really did feel that from the moment that I saw that video. I felt like something had changed. Obviously, there were terrible things that were said, but that's to be expected. I think Matt Walsh had the best take on that. And he said, if your enemies do not dance when you die, then you didn't punch hard enough. And that also hit home with me. I came home, I was traveling for work at the time when Charlie Kirk had died, and I came home and I hadn't seen my wife and kids or physically seen them because we're lucky we've got FaceTime these days, but I hadn't physically seen them for a week. And we sat down at the dinner table and my wife and I looked at each other and there was just this look between us. And we just sort of reached over, held hands, and she already knew what I was thinking. Just a moment of understanding. And I'm not saying I'm Charlie. I don't think I could ever be. The guy started at 18, was 31 when he died and built a megalith. But I'm only 28. So I've got some time. So we'll see. Maybe we'll circle back on this thought process in 12 years' time and see where we're at. But mostly I wanted to use this intro as an opportunity to say thank you for the countless hours of incredible understanding and wisdom that I gained from Charlie. courage that I've garnered since his death. And a thank you to the people who are carrying on his legacy inside of America and abroad. I mean, I felt it here in Australia as well. There are people whose voices have risen up. There are people who have decided to take up that call, not to instill American-style politics into Australia. It can't work, not here. But to take up the call of faith more than anything else. To say, hey, we believe these things, and these things built the nation that we live in today. You were allowed your freedoms because of what we believe in. But when you break the foundations of a nation, then the nation starts to crumble. And so I'm taking this step, and I hope that a lot of other people also decide to take this step, if they haven't already, to start speaking, not just in public, but with your friends. In the days after Charlie died, I was at a gymnastics competition, and just random men, random women, I wasn't even speaking about Charlie. They come up to me and start talking about faith, start talking about politics. There's a conversation that has been struck into everyone is speaking so much more freely. And I think that's a real testament to who he was. And I really hope that wherever he is, hopefully in heaven, that he takes comfort in knowing that his death did far more good than it did evil. So thank you, Charlie. Thank you, Erica. Now, let's get into the news. Australia is consulting on a $1.2 billion plan to create a strategic reserve of critical minerals or rare earth minerals as a consequence of China's ongoing blockade of those rare earth minerals as a result of Donald Trump's tariffs. On the flip side of that coin, ANZ Bank has just announced 3,500 jobs will be removed leading into September of 2026. Both of these are showing a very clear and honestly not a very good image for Australia, at least in its current state. The way that I see it is that it's a return to what Australia is good at. We're great at mining, great at digging, and we're great at selling off our resources to other countries. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. There's a lot of talk on our side of the aisle that we're selling off all of our coal, some of our oil overseas, and in and of itself, that's not necessarily a bad thing. The problem that we're finding right now is that we're giving it away at a bargain. Now, Australia is one of the most mineral-rich places on Earth, after China and maybe after Africa. And so we can really take a positive view of this, but we've got to get what we're worth out of this. Now, we're not really in a good position internationally. We were completely left out of the current negotiations that have happened between Israel and Hamas. Albanese hasn't even spoken to Donald Trump yet, not face-to-face at least. And Penny Wong, who is our Foreign Affairs Minister, is seen as pretty much a joke by most of Australians. The people on the left who support Hamas think that she's a shill and she just flip-flops on issues. And the people on the right think that, well, she is what she is. Useless. She's done nothing for Australia in the last 4 years. Nothing positive, at least, except releasing media statements left, right, and centre, pretending like she's done something, and meeting up with CCP members over in China for a nice little meal. But where we are right now in Australia is in a very strong position to get a foothold back in. Australia made its name with the Anzacs, with the diggers. We made an economic stance for ourselves with coal, and we can get back to that if we take advantage of this current economic catastrophe that is happening around the globe. And I don't think people truly realize what those rare earth minerals mean. Your phone, the camera I'm using, the screen you're watching from, all of it needs rare earth minerals. The electric batteries in all of our new green cars, every single one of them needs rare earth minerals, and lots of them. So Australia has a real opportunity here to get rid of the bureaucracy, to get rid of the kerfuffle inside of institutions like ANZ and a lot of those other corporate businesses, and create a return to jobs that really create wealth for Australia from other nations. We want other countries buying from us. You've got to think about the economy this way. If I give my wife $10 and then she gives me $10, neither of us have made any money. In the same way, if I buy something from John down the street at the butcher and he buys something from me, the country hasn't made any money, right? And so the way that a country becomes wealthy is by selling to other nations. That is taking something we've made, something we've thought of, something we've created, something we've pulled out of the earth, and selling it off to them. That's real GDP growth. That's real wealth being created by a nation. And so Australia has a real opportunity here to take things to the next level. In other news, Lydia Thorpe, or as I'm calling her at the moment, is Lydia Thorpedo, is deciding to go on a big rant at a pro-Palestine rally and is saying that she's going to burn down Parliament. Now, this might have been rhetoric. It could have been metaphor, as she's stating. But that's not even the part of her speech that really bugged me. Let's take a listen to what she said, and we'll see what you think.
And we will fight every day, and we will turn up every day. And if I have to burn down Parliament House to make a point, I am not there to make friends. I am there to get justice for our people. And I am there to free Palestine.
Now, the burn down Parliament thing, that's one thing. That's rhetoric. But there's a little Freudian slip there. Two of them, actually, if you really listen. I am there for our people. Who's our people? I don't think she's referring to her constituents or the people that she's meant to be there to represent. And I'm there to free Palestine. Now, in Australia, we have a representative democracy. A representative democracy means that people within your local area will vote for you to represent them. And so how can you, as a senator, go out in front of the public and say, you know what we're going to do? You know what I'm here for? You know what I'm actually doing here? I'm actually here not to represent you, not to represent the people of Australia, but to free Palestine and to free our people. Who is our people? Lydia, aren't the people technically inside of Parliament your people? Shouldn't you be making friends with them? Doesn't it make sense that you would want to make friends with them because one voice alone in Parliament doesn't go a long way? Do you think that you as a sole person can go into Parliament outside of actually burning the place down and seriously make a difference? The entire point of the Australian Parliament, it is that it is a unified voice for Australia coming from a multitude of locations and areas. We all come together, they all speak, and they all figure out what is best for Australians. That isn't just a consequence of your own ideals. That isn't just coming from what you believe is right. It is a consequence of the things that people voted for to put you into that seat. If that's not what you're doing, then you don't have a place in the Australian Parliament or in the Australian Senate. You should not be representing Australians when you say, that's not what I'm there for. I'm there to free Palestine. Gotta love the Australians. The social media ban has been getting a whole lot of news recently. It was just announced today that the government will be spending $15 million to propagandize to us about it, leading into December. Now, I'm torn on the social media ban, right? Because personally, I think that if it is just a social media ban for under 16s, that's great. The issue is there's no real concise plan on how to get that across the line. How does a social media company know who is 16, who is 18, who is 13, who's 55? The only real way that that can happen is with some form of ID. Now, the average person is not going to be willing to post up their driver's license or their government ID documents onto a social media platform. We've all seen the leaks. We know how sensitive data can be, especially in Australia recently with the Optus hack. We are looking at a situation here at the moment in Australia where we could be on the doorstep of something very similar to the UK very soon, where a digital ID will be forced upon the people, and that digital ID can only lead to bad things. When a record of who you are, where you are at all times exists online, the government can use it for their own benefit, for their own swing, and to make the population subjugate to it. That's one of the things that I always find very interesting about people who think that Christian nationalism is an issue. They think that Christian nationalism is going to subjugate people under the social branch of what Catholicism is. But if you actually think about what was done at the Last Supper, it's the perfect representation of a representative democracy. It was Jesus washing the feet of the disciples and saying that even though I am your master, or I am your politician, your prime minister, your MP, I'm here to serve you. And I think that we can really take something from that, because a lot of Australian politicians today get into office and forget the fact that they are there to represent the people who voted them in, not the other way around. We are not there to vote them in so that they get power and then they can do what they really want. That has become clearer and clearer inside of this government, where 60% of what has actually gone through in Parliament under the new Albanese government that was voted in earlier this year was not even brought up inside of the election promises, the pre-election. Not only that, we are getting to a point now where the government is outright lying to us, blocking information from reaching Australians through its blocks on FOIA laws. And very recently with the immigration, technically it's repatriation of the Syrian brides. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't know how I feel about having women who decided to leave Australia after being radicalized by men to get into ISIS, coming back into Australia. And at the same time, blocking Candace Owens, who, mind you, not really a big fan of right now. I wouldn't call myself a Zionist, but when everything is Israel, you start to sound a little bit like you hate the Jews. As a free speech principle, the idea that the Australian government would block Candace Owens from coming to Australia because of anti-Semitism, while at the same time bringing in ISIS terrorists who in their documents say not only that they're anti-Semitic, but they're proud of it, and saying that the brides of those ISIS terrorists can come back to Australia while lying to the Australian public is insane. It is a contradiction of the highest order. It is a lie directly to the face of the Australian people, and Tony Burke should be investigated for it. He lied directly to our faces, and then simultaneously and contradictory unto himself blocked Candace Owens from coming to Australia because of anti-Semitism. It is insane to think that that is one of the people who is representing the Australian people. Insane. What else is on there? There's a million things happening at the moment. A new poll has come out. 71% of Australians now agree, according to a poll from the IPA, that we need a pause on immigration. Now, I'm an immigrant. I have no problem with immigration. I think that Australia is better with a great immigration policy. I think that we can bring in truly good people who want to be here and who want to make Australia an incredible place to live, make Australia great. But I agree with the poll. I think that when you increase numbers, not incrementally, but in showers, doublings, triplings over the course of 10 years, while simultaneously reducing infrastructure spending, well, increasing the spending but reducing the output, we are going to run into serious issues where there are not enough houses for the amount of people who are coming in an economy that is already struggling with a housing crisis. So what can we do? Now, Senator Jared Rennick, or ex-Senator Jared Rennick, believes that there should be a cap of 100,000 people. And he'll be walking in the march for Australia, or the anti-immigration march, whatever we're calling it now, on Sunday the 19th. Other pundits have said a full moratorium, that's just turn off the tap, no one comes in. But when you turn off the tap, people start to get thirsty. I don't think that a full moratorium makes any sense. I personally believe that we should be going back to 2015 levels of immigration, maybe a little bit earlier. I think Jared Rennick probably has it about right. Between 80,000 to about 120,000 people per year probably makes the most sense. And the reasoning is this, is that when you bring in 400 to 500,000 people per annum, you're not being strict about who comes in. You're not being really, really thoughtful about the sort of person that you are allowing into this country. And that's a really, really big issue. Now, a lot of people say that Australia doesn't have a culture and that the melting pot is the culture of Australia. But there is an underbed, a bedrock of who we are. We're larrikins, we're free people, we love a laugh, we love our sports. We have a happy-go-lucky attitude. We're very libertarian. We believe that she'll be right, or he'll sort himself out, or you'll be right. And some of the people that we are bringing into this country today do not share those values, do not hold those ideals. I'm from Western Sydney, where a large number of the people who are building in and around us aren't like us. And not in the ways that don't matter. Because if I spend enough time in the sun, I'm probably browner than half the people who are coming into Australia right now. But in the ways that do matter. It could be the little things. Macamius, I don't exactly know how to say his name, I'll be honest, had a great take today that, or yesterday I think it might have been, where he basically said that he always knows a good person, basically, when they raise their hand, when someone's let them in to merge into the lane in the car. And I agree. I personally think that it should be part of the citizenship test to say, what is this signal? Just a photo from the back of the car with a hand raised. What is this signal and when should you use it? That would be pretty much a surefire way of getting rid of 50% of the people who should not be here. Now, I don't think I'm going to get into all of that in one show. It's probably the biggest issue that we'll speak about outside of our next segment. But immigration is going to be a big topic at the next election. If housing prices do not come down, and if people keep seeing their quality of life suffer as a consequence, prices going up, social cohesion going down, then Labor's going to have a lot to answer for. They've touted themselves as the party of all, the party of unity. They've touted themselves as the party of anti-racists, and Jim Chalmers constantly coming out, having a crack at anyone who questions the policies of this current government. They're going to have a lot to answer for if things do not improve for Australians. Australians who are here now, Australians who are growing up in Australia, and the people who truly want to make Australia a great place to live. The people who do come here looking for a place to call home, and not just from war-torn areas In fact, it should be the least of which from war-torn areas. Australia right now has its own problems. Let's get ourselves on track, and then we'll help the rest of the world. We'll give charity, we will assist, but the people who come here should be wanting to build our nation. We are a land of plenty, but right now, we don't have plenty to go around. The hands and feet who are here trying to dig through day by day are effectively just working for the government. I think at this stage, more than 40% of the entire workforce is taxpayer funded. That's not good enough. We need industry, we need manufacturing, and we need incentives for people to get into those industries. And now we'll move on to a segment that I'm calling, or I'd like to call, I'm not sure if I'll do the corner of contradictions. I have a chair over there, which I may or may not sit in, but the idea of turning this camera and then trying to get it back into the same place is really, really giving me trouble right now. I'm not sure if I'll call it the corner of contradictions and move myself over there, or if I just call it the Cult of Contradictions, which is I'm not plugging. I've barely started this thing, but it's a book that I'm working on called The Cult of Contradictions. So we'll see how that goes. I think we have to start off this segment with a bang. And so we're going to do probably the one person who should really be removed from Australian politics. And I'm sort of removed from this person. She doesn't affect me. Not really. But seeing her speak the way she does, the contradictions, the absolute apathy for the Australian people or anyone who does not share her beliefs, she belongs as the first person in this segment. And I'm speaking about Jacinta Allen. Now, I'm going to be talking about one very specific topic today, about a post that she made just today. But I think that everyone should really go and look at what Jacinta Allen has to say about a whole wide range of topics. Now, I understand that this might be a sensitive one for people, but coming from my perspective, I don't think that it's possible to hold this view and still be really happy about it. Now, we'll dig into Jacinta Allen and her post, but this is a national issue. Jacinta highlighted it for me today, which was a whole lot of fun. It sent me down a mad rabbit hole. And I am talking about VAD, or voluntary assisted dying. Now, I'll read out the post that Jacinta made today about voluntary assisted dying, and you can go and find it if you have X, formerly Twitter, and jump on there and have a read of what she said and see if you really think about it, if any of the things that she said truly make any sense. Because they don't to me. So let's see. Dignity shouldn't be a privilege. When treatment ends, when hope looks different, every Victorian should still have a choice. Hope. To live without fear and to die without pain. Since 2019, Victoria's voluntary assisted dying laws have given people that right to end their life with dignity on their own terms. But too many have still faced barriers. Too many doctors unable to raise the option and speak honestly when it matters most. Too many families watching someone they love suffer longer than they should. Today we're changing that, making the law fairer, kinder, and easier for those who have fought long enough, because no one should spend their final days suffering or have to prove they deserve peace. It's one of the hardest things to talk about, but the kindest thing we'll ever do. Dignity, choice, compassion. That's what it's all about, and Victorians deserve nothing less. Now, I don't think I've ever heard anyone, except maybe people who love abortion, speak about death in this way. Ever. It's like that they're these saving graces from God that are sent upon this earth to stop people from feeling pain. Just think about the key words in that too. It's peace, it's hope, it's dignity, choice. It's all the same stuff that you hear from all of the morally bankrupt people who are far more willing to choose the sword over choosing true human dignity and the true human experience. And it's a consequence of the fact that we don't have God in this world, right? I mean, we try and play God. We don't have a belief system that backs up our identity, that sits above us. We are our own God on this planet. And so we play that way. And we think that we have the right to choose when people die, when people come into this world, if we want them, if we don't want them to be here. And I think that the word barriers and breaking down barriers when it comes to people choosing to commit suicide is probably something that should be in place. And the barrier shouldn't be at 6 months, as it currently is in Victoria. And it shouldn't be the barrier of the person has to ask for the doctor to be able to talk about it. It shouldn't even be on the table. No one should have the option to kill themselves. And this is where the contradiction really kicks in. Now, this whole post is a big contradiction. I mean, the idea of hope looking different, right? I mean, the whole idea behind the argument against voluntary assisted dying is that there's a hope that potentially there's a cure that's just around the corner. You have a disease that has no cure. You've been given X amount of time to live. And in that circumstance, you have hope. And the hope keeps you going, potential news that's coming. And this is something that hits home with me, something that's personal to me. My grandfather, my nannu, he was 2 years ago. He was told, you have 6 months to live. And in a quiet whisper, the doctor said to my mum, who's his daughter, said it's probably closer to 3 months, or in so many words. And he's still here today. Now, is he living as if he was 20 years old? No. He walks slower than most snails, but he walks around. He's seen the birth of 2 beautiful granddaughters, 3, and a beautiful grandson as well, actually. I forgot how many kids there are in our family now. But he's lived more life. He's added more value. He's created more memories. And he's in pain every day. But he believes in God. He believes that the suffering that he experiences in this life will get him through the door, through the gate to an eternal life. Now, I'm not expecting that a 95-year-old grandma who has never believed in God is going to convert on her deathbed right before she takes what is the same medication that is given to criminals on their deathbeds when they are getting a lethal injection in the United States or in other countries with lethal injection. I'm not expecting that. I don't think that's going to happen. This is a slow burn. Hope is what Christianity gives us, what Catholicism gives us, what a belief in God gives us, the belief in a higher power gives us. And to me, the greatest contradiction in all of this is the idea that the same people who are the advocates for voluntary assisted dying are the same people who will be sad when a teenager commits suicide because of depression or anxiety or some unknown disease. I mean, only yesterday, actually, no, it was, well, the post came up today, but Jacinta Allen ripped apart some journalist for asking about trans suicide and debating the numbers on trans suicide. I don't understand how you can hold both views simultaneously. That someone who is suffering so deeply, physically, mentally, it's a dignity for them to commit suicide, using voluntary assisted dying. But when a trans person decides to do it and a reporter questions it, Jacinta Allen rips into her. How dare you? How can you do this? How can you question the numbers? This is so sad. This is terrible. We've got this vulnerable community. You're the same person who is one post after another ripping apart a journalist for questioning suicide numbers and then touting suicide for those who are in pain. And this isn't just a 95-year-old person's issue. I mean, the median age so far in Victoria seems to be between 70 and 75 years old. But that's a median. That means that there are people who are much younger than that who are having voluntary assisted death. And at the same time, you have the gall to go before the Australian people in a press conference and pretend as though you're sad that trans people are killing themselves. Not because they're trans, but just because anyone has decided to commit suicide. And the other thing that probably hits home to me is the idea that doctors should be able to actually provide this or say, hey, this is an option. Right now, as someone who does not believe in abortion at any point for any reason, the intent to commit an abortion for at any point for any reason, and I'm willing to discuss that with anyone who wants to. That is something that is on the books for abortion. It's not just on the books, it's the thing to offer someone. If they're questioning, if they're worried, if they have any doubt, something looks a little bit off, you're a bit sick, you need an operation for something completely different. Fully personal story. For our second child, my wife had appendicitis. And when we went in to the doctor, she was in hospital for 2 days. And they finally figured out she had an inflamed appendix. It could have ruptured. We actually found out that we were pregnant at the first time that her appendix had inflamed. They got it down with antibiotics and things sort of settled down. Now, we went to a specialist appointment and I was kicked out of the room, which I understand it. It needs to happen. Domestic violence is a thing and people can be pressured into situations that they do not want to be in. But obviously that hurts me. As a Catholic family, we believe that we are one. We are one body, and so being separated in a decision like that, not a great thing. But when I walked back into the room, my wife leaned over to me and she just whispered in my ear. She said, she offered me an abortion. And now we are well-read. We understand the biology and we understand from a faith perspective that that is not an option for us. And so we did not go ahead with the abortion, obviously. We waited 5 weeks. Her appendix inflamed again. And we went back to the hospital. They did a surgery. The surgery went amazingly. And 30 weeks later, our daughter was born. I don't see how doctors being able to offer is going to help patients. If someone is in chronic, deathly pain, they are going to ask for something that is already available to them. I don't believe it should be. It's on the books as a law. It's allowed. It's not cheap, mind you. I mean, moving away from Victoria, New South Wales is spending almost $100 million over the course of 4 years. So that means taxpayers are spending their dollars to kill people. That's over 4 years. That's $25 million. My maths just went out the window. $25 million a year for 4 years has been set aside for voluntary assisted dying in New South Wales. Now, if that doesn't make your blood boil, I don't know what will. And listen, libertarianism, I have a place for it in my heart. If you decide that that's what you want to do, I'm not a libertarian because I believe that my duty is to my God and then to my country. God, family, country, but it's always God first. So libertarian view doesn't really work for me. but I understand the libertarian value from a political and social perspective. I should not have to pay from my tax dollars because you've decided to go and kill yourself, because you're in too much pain and you've decided, I want to go die. I want it all to stop. I understand it. There are moments in everybody's life, and especially men being the predominant, or at least the plurality of people who are voluntary, who are committing suicide through voluntary assisted dying. I think all men who have at some point felt like they weren't enough have thought to themselves, maybe it would be easier to just veer off into that tree in the dead of night and we'll see what happens. Everyone's had those thoughts, but it is the hope that tomorrow might be better that keeps us going. And if we're going to spend $100 million on anything, it should be giving people the hope that tomorrow will be better. That tomorrow you could wake up on a tested medication and your pain's just a little bit better. That you wake up tomorrow and your daughter comes to you and says, hey, Dad, I'm pregnant. Or, hey, Dad, I'm getting married. John proposed to me. To quote one of my favorite movies, sun will come out tomorrow. Bet your bottom dollar that tomorrow there'll be sun. I think we as an Australian population, especially if you're Christian, especially if you're Catholic, especially if you're religious, have an obligation to call this stuff out. It is not good enough. And frankly, it's a slap in the face to all Australians to tell them you are killing your fellow Australians with your dollars. You go to work every day and you're paying for someone to die. It's part of your paycheck today. To me, that's unforgivable. Quote Matt Walsh, Jacinta Allen, you are cancelled. Let's wrap this up with a segment that I'm calling 50 States in 5 minutes. Now, America's a big place. A lot happens. Compared to them, we're tiny. So it might not always be 5 minutes, but it sounds good. So we're going with 50 states in 5 minutes. Donald Trump has decided to do a world tour. He decided to go from America to Israel and the Knesset to welcome home the 20 hostages. He then flew to Egypt, where he met with regional leaders and signed a 20-point peace plan, which hopefully will hold, but it is not currently looking good. Hamas have decided not to release the remainder of the hostages, who are all deceased. They are claiming that they don't currently have custody of their bodies, and they are trying to work out a deal with Israel. Israel is putting pressure on Hamas to get this deal done in order for Israel to go in and search for those bodies by pressuring them with food shortages, which I don't necessarily agree with. I feel like the threat of bombs is probably going to do the trick. You don't really need to threaten people with starvation in order to get them across the line. He then flew back to America, where he met with more world leaders and did a stunning Donald Trump typical by spending about 40 minutes talking about how good things are going in the United States and 5 minutes talking about Charlie Kirk. In the meantime, making as many jokes as humanly possible. Now, I personally love it. I don't think it's a good look for the people that don't like Trump, but I personally like it. He tries to take the edge off, and I personally think he did a great job. We then heard from Erica Kirk, who gave another tear-jerking speech. I don't think that woman has spoken since Charlie's death, and I have not cried. Every time that she brings up her daughter and Charlie's daughter, it's just tear city. And whether or not, she actually said that stuff, who knows? Because, I have 3-4-year-olds, and she does not speak that way. But a daughter of Charlie Kirk with a hereditary voice like that, potentially. Donald Trump spent the remainder of the speech talking very, very fondly of Argentina, which has done an incredible job of itself over the last 6 to 12 months, turning its economy around in a way no one has ever seen before. The US House of Congress is still shut down, so there is no money going around, and Donald Trump and the Republicans are taking full advantage at the moment, cutting jobs left, right, and center that they deem to be left-wing jobs or Democrat jobs. What else is happening in the States right now? Gavin Newsom's making a run for president. Ron Mamdani is openly calling himself a socialist and saying that he's going to socialize New York, and I have a feeling that he is not going to win that election. He might be the first Democrat to not win an election, because even the independents have all really been Democrats for probably the last 20, 30 years. So we'll see how that all runs through. Obama and his lackeys are all in deep water at the moment with Donald Trump, with James Comey being indicted, and it seems like there are more indictments coming. In terms of social news, it seems like Candace Owens is continuing her spin on the death of Charlie Kirk, while the rest of the world is quietly trying to move on in a way and grow out of the situation. And Trump tariffs with China are still looking very, very, very shaky. China's not backing down from its decision to block all rare earth minerals from leaving its shores to America and American allies. And Donald Trump's not backing down from his tariff plan either. That's a big one for Australia. China is now our largest trading partner. And as a consequence of that, anything that happens to China really affects us. Now, that might make us a better partner for China, but personally, I think that it's probably going to destroy the Chinese economy. But we'll see how that goes. Not quite 50 states, and I should probably put that one on a teleprompter if I'm going to try and run that in 5 minutes. But that's the first time I've done 50 states in 5 minutes. Thank you for listening in on the first episode. I promise things will clean up as I get better at this. But for the time being, if you want to send me any advice, or if you want to catch up, or if you want to do an interview of any kind, you can reach me on a very unprofessional address. It's mark.perotta@outlook.com. When I have more money to spend, I will get a domain and I will set up an email address with a proper show name. Till then, it's mark.perotta@outlook.com. I hope you've enjoyed. I want to say thank you to my wife for letting me do this, and to my family, who is probably going to grill every second of this. Please take it easy on me. Until then, God bless you. I hope that you have a great rest of your day or night, whatever time you're listening to this, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.